Welcome to Better Public Servant, Starr County, Texas. Get ready for some unadulterated, raw, no holds barred, unapologetic truth. This is Starr County political analysis where the crimes committed by public servants to the voters and taxpayers have no statutes of limitations. The voters are the jury. Court is now in session. A person has to seek the truth to find it. The truth has to be tested and weighed against the proof. The truth is not a treasure to keep to oneself when it pertains to local politics, nor is it something that should be sold to the highest bidder. It should be shared because the consequences of the lies affect us all. As written by Paul Gerard, when a man lies, he murders some part of the world. These are the pale deaths men miscall their lives.
I was a prosecutor for between 7 and 8 years.
I was a prosecutor for between 7 and 8 years.
Mr. Gocha Alan Ramirez passed the bar on November 12, 1979. He began serving Starr County late into the year 1980. Let us assume then that he started in September. This way, the approximation is in his favor. According to the article, he was the assistant district attorney from late 1980 to July 1983. Before, he moved to Alice to practice civil law with the firm of Lloyd & Lloyd. Assuming he started on the first day of September, that would be 4 months from 1980, 12 months from 1981, 12 months from 1982, and 7 months of 1983. If he left at the end of July, that is a total of 35 months and very close to a full 3 years. As also mentioned by the article states that he held the position for almost 3 years.
I was a prosecutor for between 7 and 8 years.
The article was printed on April 4th, 1985, and it announced his return to Starr County as the appointed assistant district attorney by one Francisco A. Pancho Cerda. Mr. Cerda states that he's nothing but the best. He was here before and did a very good job. He was gone for 6 months of 1983, which is 12 of 1984, and 4 months, assuming he switched employment from one day to the next, of 1985. He was gone for 22 months. According to the article, Mr. Ramirez is quoted as having said, "I'd like to move the more serious felony cases as quickly as possible, and also I want to make the docket load more manageable. I'll be reviewing the cases that are active and get an overview of how the office is running." He said he doesn't believe it will take long for him to regain familiarity with the job. He has again in 2019 said a very similar thing. The second article, written in the Rio Grande Herald on March 12, 1987, announces that Ricardo Rocky Carrillo was named the new assistant district attorney. It reads, "Carrillo, 29, will take over his duties early next week. He will follow Alan Gocha Ramirez, who will be resigning from the position he held the past 23 months to enter into private law practice in Starr County." Further on down in the article, Carrillo commented, "Starr County has a big backlog of cases. I'm going to try to work with the district judge in trying to reduce it." He suggested he would look with favor on the idea of bringing in visiting judges if needed to alleviate the backlog. Carrillo said one of his top priorities will be working with and helping the victims of crime. He said he is a firm believer in restitution, and on that subject, Carrillo insisted there is no room for bargaining. There must have been a reason for Carrillo to have spoken as he did. I imagine that those were the reasons for his appointment. I imagine he was there to fill the need, as Mr. Ramirez had either created it by his leaving or while in office. I imagine the latter because the article ends with Mr. Ramirez concluding, "I think Mr. Carrillo has some real good ideas. I wish Mr. Carrillo the best." Those weren't his ideas back then. They aren't his ideas now either. He didn't care about the victims back then. He doesn't care about the victims now. If Mr. Ramirez had been concerned for the people of Starr County, for the backlog of cases, of working with the district judge to fix the backlog and helping the victims of crimes, he would not have said that. He would not have said, "The district court docket is just unmanageable right now. I'm so frustrated that the backlog is so great." It frustrated him. The backlog frustrated him and he quit. And that it seems that nothing can be done to alleviate it. We're getting between 30 and 40 indictments per month. which means that they're doing their job. The judge, District Judge Ricardo H. Garcia, works hard when he's here, so right there he's blaming it on the judge, but only 15 to 20 cases are disposed of each month. Reducing the docket, is not as easy as it looks. Okay, so it was a little tough for him, right? But instead of trying to fix the problem, he decides, screw this, I'm gonna go open my own private practice. They don't pay me enough to solve this problem. The man is a con artist. He went into the position of an assistant district attorney and he learned everything that he needed to learn to use that information against the very office that he worked for. He went in with good intentions and helped pave the road to hell as he tossed those intentions on his way out to create the private practice that defended criminals. Think about it. He knew the people he was up against. He knew their work and, more importantly, their weaknesses. He would pressure the DA's office to speed up a trial, thereby adding to the problem that he couldn't fix himself. He probably found himself working long hours trying to prosecute, not getting paid any extra for burning the midnight oil. Instead, he turns around and decides that it is better to serve himself and not the people of Starr County. He arrived in an old beat-up Ford LTD or some boxy clunker of the 90s. Later, he bought a new Ford Taurus and a new home with a swimming pool and a convertible Ford Mustang, and the money just kept rolling in, and it was easier to keep up with the Joneses or Gonzaleses or Garcia Velas or whoever. The life of prosecuting on the side of the county or the state wasn't good enough for him. It wasn't going to provide the lifestyle that he needed. Even the private practice wasn't enough for the man who later swapped out wives. He sat as local counsel and collected over $600,000 that we know of from Rio and God knows how much from Roma. He challenges the DA Omar Escobar to reveal how forfeiture money was spent. That information is available to any of us through the Public Information Act. I want to know how the defects case money was distributed and how it was spent. I challenge you, Mr. Ramirez, to show us where the school's money went to. What bank accounts did it go into? Who got the money? Where it was spread out? Because I seriously don't believe that all of that money went into your pocket, up your nose, and into your fancy cars and your fancy houses and vacations and whatnot. I think that money was what was used to fund a lot of the political campaigns. Prove me wrong. Understand exactly how disingenuous the man is. Look for the con, the tranza. If he gets elected to be the DA, do you really believe that it is because he is going to magically do something that frustrated him in 1987? He couldn't do it back then, but now I'm supposed to believe that he's somehow going to do it. Why didn't he stick around and possibly run for the DA? Why did he take the problem by the horns and find a solution, work towards it? He bailed. He took the information and defended the criminals. He turned around and he defended the criminals. He had an edge, an advantage. Do you really think he wants to be the DA because he wants to put the guys that he is representing currently, the guys that he's defending, you really think he wants to be the DA to put those guys behind bars? He will take all of his cases and give them to someone else as a lawyer, as lawyers do when they get elected to positions like judges and district attorneys. He becomes the man on the inside now. He can at that point control what is going to be used to prosecute someone, and he won't be cheap. If it cost you a few grand to hire him as a lawyer, it will cost you a few more grand to hire him as a district attorney. The point is that he is switching sides again. First, he takes the intel from the DA's office to benefit the accused. Then he tries to take control of the power to prosecute the accused altogether. Imagine if Mr. Ramirez would have been the DA instead of Mr. Escobar. Would the people that are complaining about Mr. Escobar be complaining at all? Or would Mr. Ramirez have accepted money in exchange of dropping the prosecution altogether in some disingenuous manner? I'm talking about people like Bernice Garza. Of course not. She would have never seen the courtroom because of her voter fraud. We would probably not even know about it. Even though it wasn't Omar Escobar going after her, it was the Attorney General. But, let's forget these little details and let's just say what we want to and use it to our advantage. Well, that is certainly one way of clearing a pesky docket. And by that, I mean just letting the guys go. Some people might think, but Oz, it would be great if I was a criminal and I got away with a crime because Mr. Ramirez charged me a few $1,000s that I could easily cover with my crime money. The reality is, my little ambitious criminal with high hopes and narrow vision, that Mr. Ramirez will only be available to a select elite group of criminals. He won't be available to everyone. The rest of us, petty thieves and criminals, the majority of criminals, will have to make him look good as a DA. But wait, there's more after a brief message from one of our sponsors. The following paid commercial ad is brought to you by, in part, Eddie Ortiz.
Rio Grande City is exploding in growth as Roma's being left behind. New to Rio Grande City, we have Tacos Store, right next to the Glory Hole Law Firm. Make sure and come by with all your law problems and come pick up some Costroso tacos and bring your friends, bring your pet, eat your pet. Open your mind to a new venture.
Sí, usted traiga lo que quiera traer y aquí se los cocinamos. En Roma no los quisieron, solo los venimos para acá, para Río Grande, y está pegando el taco Costroso. Los está yendo bien, ahí les encargo perros, gatos, lo que ustedes traigan, tacuache, no hay pedo, yo se los cocino.
December 23rd, 1982, the young Mr. Ramirez was opposed to cutting a 50-cent per $100 tax rate. There was discussion and controversy on the increased tax rate, and people spoke out in defense of keeping it. That's fine. I'm not going to argue over the increases in taxes over the years. Instead, what caught my attention about the article was how Mr. Ramirez was quoted at the end of the article as having said, "The job will not be done. Let's not have complaints when it's not done." They were talking about cutting half of the personnel in the DA's office. And if the county did that, he would not stick around. If the going got tough, he would bail. He did it in 1987. He would be the first to go. He probably said as some martyr, saying, I'm so valuable that you can't afford not to have me. If you make cuts, I'll be the first to go. He said that in the middle of the article. At the end, he communicates that it will not be his fault for not getting the job done. Think about it for a second. If for whatever reason the county needed to actually cut half of the personnel in the office, Mr. Ramirez would not be the type of person that continues to serve the public through rough times. He's the type of person that wants it the easy way. There are people that can work within budgets and work around problems, and there are people that can only ask for more money and blame their shortcomings on other factors other than themselves. Someone would have to do the job, and Mr. Ramirez made it clear that he would not work under difficult circumstances. Think about what that means if he gets elected. Mr. Ramirez will inevitably ask for more money. He will follow the same directives that the Pino Lopez and Peña Garza family have instructed their puppets to follow. They will spend on suppliers and contractors that give them kickbacks, and then ask for loans and place the burden of more debt on the voters and taxpayers' backs. He will say that it was what is needed to accomplish what is already being accomplished on a budget. If he doesn't get what he wants, then he will retire, as he has mentioned before in one of his campaign videos. He will move aside and let someone approved by the Pino Peñas, the Leti Lopez Garza Galvans, and the problem will get even worse. Just like he worked between 7 to 8 years as a prosecutor, that would be 84 to 96 months, but in reality, it was almost 5 years. Almost 60 months.
There's even a statute in the Code of Criminal Procedure that dictates that a prosecutor's job is not to obtain a conviction, but is to do justice. The concept of doing justice is what I wish to achieve as a prosecutor. Justice is not putting them in jail sometimes. This concept that justice is putting somebody in prison, I don't think is accurate. The victims are happy with the result. I express my happiness for him. I express my happiness for him and his family that he had started on the path to what he considers justice for his son and his grandson. To bring justice, real justice, to the Garcia family.